Welcome back. You tune in to Salam Media Highlights with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. We're going to be turning our attention to a major international development. We've been tracking this story, I think, since the start of the afternoon. A new United States of America bill aimed at reviewing Washington's relationship with South Africa and sanctioning ANC officials is gathering momentum in Congress. It was introduced by Republican Representative Ronnie Jackson. The bill has cleared a key hurdle, passing through the Foreign Affairs Committee with little to no resistance. And it comes just weeks after President Donald Trump imposed that 30% tariff on South African goods, marking a low point in US and South African relations. Organizations like AfriForum have welcomed the move, saying it targets corrupt South African politicians, referring to ANC politicians in this case, while the ANC in itself remains quite defiant, drawing parallels to past struggles and asserting their continued commitment to justice and sovereignty. To help us unpack what this means for our diplomacy, trade, and South Africa's international standing alongside the United States of America, we're joined by Dr. Oscar van Heerden. He's a senior research fellow at the University of Johannesburg Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership. Dr. van Heerden, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us. I think this is the biggest story coming out of the United States affecting South Africa in the last few hours. How was your initial reaction when the breaking news was made? And just how serious is this bill if it passes? What would targeted sanctions on ANC officials actually look like in practice?
Thanks, Salalo. I think that my initial impression is that it's very concerning that punitive legislation is being opted for and not diplomatic solutions, diplomatic engagements. And it does, it presumes a long-term punishment on South Africa as if there will not be any changes in the future by South African governments with regards to foreign policy choices and so forth. So to me, it suggests that there are other ulterior motives behind such legislation. It is as if the United States want to cajole and bully us into submission and ensure that all future foreign policy choices we make or consider must first be okayed by the White House. It's very, very worrying.
Most definitely. And one thing that is really interesting, I think, to signify and show that this is a well-coordinated and calculated move coming out of the United States is the fact that this bill comes just weeks after US President Donald Trump imposed those 30% tariffs on South African goods. How do you read the current state of US and South African relations? Can we safely say we've reached a point of a full-blown out diplomatic fallout between the two countries?
I don't think we can confidently say that yet. I mean, we can say that the Trump administration is certainly hell-bent on having antagonizing relations with South Africa. And as you rightfully point out, it's not only this bill, should it become legislation, it's also the tariffs, the trade that has been weaponized. It's also about the showdown that took place in the Oval Office when our president was there with his delegation. So there's a concerted effort to try and punish South Africa, to try and make an example of South Africa. And I think it is most unfortunate. And I must just also add, Salilo, if people think that it is only going to be ANC individuals and politicians that is going to bear the brunt of sanctions, I think they must think again. I wouldn't be surprised, knowing the United States, they are going to extend that bill, if it gets approved, to also incorporate journalists that write what they don't like. It's also going to include academics and public intellectuals that raise their views, that is, they consider anti-US and anti-Israel. It's going to be a number of other people, including business people. So we mustn't fool ourselves and make the mistake that the Zuma administration made with the no-fly resolution, no-fly zone resolution of Libya, only to find that it actually means that you bomb Libya to oblivion and you kill the leader Muammar Gaddafi. So people mustn't be fooled and think that this is going to be legislation only targeting ANC individuals. It is not.
And I think it's important you make that point, because I think I was about to ask a very similar kind of question. I saw organizations like AfriForum welcoming this move, saying it targets, quote unquote, corrupt ANC politicians and will not affect ordinary citizens in any way. But you've already cleared that it could trickle down to other spheres of South African society.
And
Is
not
this,
only that,
yeah,
Salalo, it's
yes.
not just about the sanctions on individuals. I think AfriForum mustn't be disingenuous. This punitive legislation also is going to find expression in, for example, the 30% tariffs that is being slapped on South Africa, finding expression into other bilateral agreements like AGOA. So AfriForum, Solidariteit, and the Democratic Alliance must own their fair share of responsibility for this punitive legislation, because it's also done on their by their behest.
Mm, definitely. I want to touch on the ANC itself, and how they could probably react to this. We've already saw some reactions from the ANC through its leaders, like Nomvula Mokonyane, for instance. She came out and struck a defiant tone, if I can put it that way, drawing comparisons to Cuba and other past liberation struggles. Does this stance hold weight on the global stage, or is it likely to deepen the diplomatic rift? What would a cool-headed response from the ANC and from the South African government look like at this point?
Look, you don't want to be necessarily in an antagonistic relationship with the largest economy in the world. I don't think that we want to have a conflictual relationship with the United States. Having said that, it is a very difficult juggling that has to happen, because you also don't want to sell your sovereignty for a song, because this, in a way, is what the United States is wanting. They want us to review our relations with certain countries, our trade relations with other countries. Let me just touch on a few issues. No? This bill talks about the South African government downgrading the diplomatic status of Taiwan. Well, the official policy of South Africa and the South African government is a one China policy. We don't see Taiwan as separate from the People's Republic of China. This, by the way, is the exact same policy position of the United States government. So, it's double standards to want to now punish us for something where the policy of the United States is exactly the same, which is one China. On another thing is, they talk of our relationship with Hamas leadership. Since when is this the purview of only the Qataris and the Emiratis? The United States is okay with Qatar and the UAE engaging with Hamas when they want to talk to the Hamas leadership, when they want to make certain deals and have ceasefires, etc. But somehow, when South Africa talks to the Hamas leadership, it's a problem. Again, double standards, that's there. The ICT matter, Salalo, is I think everyone will agree, with the ongoing genocide being live streamed on our phones and our devices, that this is a principal decision of the South African government to take Israel to the ICJ and to hold it accountable, so that it must comply with international law. And the US may disagree with that. It's their right to do so. But for the African government, it's a principal matter. It's about complying to international law, complying to international humanitarian law, and to try and avoid a genocide that is taking place in Gaza, and increasingly now also in the West Bank.
No,
You know,
definitely.
so yeah, so as for the membership to BRICS,
Yes.
we do that with our national interest in mind. The number one trading partner of the United States is China. The number one trading partner of the European Union is China. So why must South Africa now be punished because our number one trading partner is China?
No, most definitely, and I think you touched on my next point because it was on exactly that. Republican Representative there, Ronnie Jackson, I think when he was tabling this at Congress, he also made reference to BRICS and the efforts of de-dollarization. Let's touch a bit on that. That the BRICS bloc and its efforts to de-dollarize. I think one of the key highlights, and I think one of the points that give the United States of America jitters and nightmares, and they're making an example of everyone. I mean, of South Africa, and not everyone else. BRICS Plus, I think now is on 15 countries, if I'm not mistaken.
You know, the enormous privilege that the US dollar has been enjoying for decades now gave the United States a level of arrogance where they thought that they can use that same dollar, weaponize it, and impose sanctions on countries and bully them so that they must do what the United States wants them to do. Now, I say again, Salailo, it is the United States that decided to weaponize the dollar. When you do that, there will be consequences. And one of the consequences is countries can see that if you are too reliant on the US dollar, the US will use it against you to punish you, to impose sanctions on you. And so the prudent thing to do is to begin to have less reliance on the US dollar so that you can mitigate that situation. And that is, rightfully so, what a number of countries in BRICS are doing. I'll give you another example. When prior to, after Russia invaded Ukraine, the Western powers, Western banks, decided to freeze Russian foreign reserves that were held in those Western banks. Now, what that says to a country like South Africa, or any country for that matter, is that if you thought that it was the prudent and safe thing to do to put your foreign reserves money in safe institutions, in global banks, but because they are Western, your money can just be taken and frozen and used as leveraged against you. Obviously, you are going to look at alternatives to put your money elsewhere so that you don't fall prey to that kind of abuse. We've seen it. They did it to Venezuela. They did it to Russia. They surely can do it to South Africa. They weaponized the dollar. Now we see, and my final point, they've weaponized trade by hitting us with tariffs. You either give us a good deal, you give us a deal that we want, otherwise we are going to make it very difficult to do business with us. We're going to slap you with high tariffs. It is draconian, it is unfair, and the world is responding.
What does this tell us about U.S. influence on the world? I mean, we've been talking for a very long time and about the world order shifting, and the U.S. empire slowly losing its grip and its influence on the world. Is this one of those signs of a crumbling empire that's trying to hold on to whatever it can by any means necessary to not lose influence that it has enjoyed for so many years?
This is exactly what's happening, Silo. This is exactly what's happening. This is a unipolar hegemonic power that has enjoyed that since 1990. so for a very long time. And unfortunately, like most empires in the past, it has completely overstretched itself. More than 800 military bases all over the world, a defense budget that is now getting to the limit of 1 trillion US dollars, an economy that is shrinking, a healthcare system and unemployment and opiate problem throughout the United States of America. And it simply is not the moral authority that it used to be in the past. It is crumbling. Countries like China, India are overtaking the United States. And in a nutshell, the US has opted to bomb instead of build. And that's why there's this slogan that's going around within the BRICS family: stop bombing and start building, because that's what China is doing. It's building, it's having its road and Belt and Road initiative. It is improving harbors, airports, road infrastructure, rail infrastructure, and that is why it is being seen as a better hegemon. No one is under any illusion about the altruistic reasons of China. Obviously, China also wants to satisfy its national interests. It also wants minerals. It wants coal. It wants arable land in far places, and so on. No one is under any illusion. But the way they go about it is much more palatable for the global south than what the USA is doing.
Most definitely. And as you're speaking about slogans, I'm reminded of one. As we speak about crumbling empires, was this little guy in the room, which is Africa, because in the greater scheme of things, but they're going for the little guys, bullying the little guys essentially. But in closing, Doc, how important is it for South Africans, for the government of the day, to know and understand that this is an administration that is going to end? This is a Trump administration. Most of these executive orders that he's signing, most of these tariffs that are put into place, depending on who's going to be the next president of America in the next 3 years, they might get reversed, and there needs to be cool, calm heads and to weather the proverbial storm, so to speak.
South Africa has got the necessary resources. It has the sector. It has the necessary resources to actually go and have a presence in Washington, D.C., to do the necessary relations, to do the necessary lobbying where required, to get cozy and close to traditionalists like the Black Caucus, like certain elements like a party. That is what South Africa needs to do. It needs to make sure that it sorts out the ambassadorship, revises because there are some problems there. And those individuals, and perhaps with the necessary support of additional capacity, needs to go and pitch a tent, literally in Washington, D.C., and like the Israelis and others, start lobbying for their interests. South Africa is the largest economy on the continent. It is an important country on the continent. It cannot be ignored. I think a lot of politicians, especially in the Democrat section, knows this and wants to do business. More than 600 US companies active in the South African economy. We cannot jeopardize any of that. And I think that a complete rethink on the part of the South African government and DIRCO is required so that we challenge this. And you're right, we shouldn't look at this in a 4-year term. We must look at it long term, 20, 30 years, and then we'll make some progress.
No, definitely, Dr. Oscar van Heerden. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure chatting to you. And I think, we'll be keeping in touch, because I feel like there's a whole lot more that's going to be coming after this, bill from Congress in the US.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. I think, as I mentioned, very, very interesting times ahead when it comes to South Africa and the United States of America. I think once very close allies, but you can see that there's a shift in the foreign policy landscape, and the question now is this a temporary fallout? Could it be only for this Trump administration, which is coming to an end in the next 3-4 years? Or could it be the beginning of a long, cold chapter between Pretoria and Washington? And most importantly, what will it take for South Africa to be cordial again with America? We do need the United States of America. I think we shouldn't be under any illusion that as much as they are an empire that is on its last feet at this current moment, in the next 15, 20 years, they're still a very, very important player in the global discourse, in business, in trade. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Pretoria reacts to this, because one thing is clear: South Africa's position on the global stage is being tested here, and the cost of its political convictions, if I can put it that way, may soon become a bit more than just conviction. So yeah, stick with us. We're going to try and get more reactions regarding this. I think this is a very, very big story. If you just joined us, the United States bill to sanction South Africa has moved forward. This is a controversial bill aimed at reviewing US and South African relations and potentially sanctioning ANC officials. It has cleared its first hurdle in Washington. The U.S. South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025. That is what it is known as and what it has been proposed to be. And it was introduced by Republican Congressman Ronnie Jackson and has passed through the powerful Foreign Affairs Committee with majority support. So Congress, their version of Parliament, has their version of Parliament, the Foreign Affairs Committee sector of it, has given it the green light. It has come out with majority of support, and essentially the bill calls for a full review of ties between the two countries, between South Africa and the United States, and could see targeted sanctions against South African government and ANC leaders for what America calls troubling shifts in foreign policy. This troubling shifts include alliances with China, with Russia, with Iran, and with Hamas, and BRICS and the ICJ, essentially, to put it plain and clear. I think it was Ronnie Jackson, this Republican congressman, who tabled it. He's a vocal supporter of President Trump, his foreign policy, and some of these crazy claims that he's making about South Africa, with the regards to this white genocide that we don't know of. And he's also claimed that South Africa has distant and abandoned America and sided with what he labeled communists and terrorists. He says this bill gives the president of America the tools to hold South Africa accountable. However, there's always two sides to the story. Critics have slapped the bill as being punitive, as I think we can all agree that it is, and also counterproductive. Even those opposed to some of the ANC's foreign policy decisions say diplomacy and not legislation is the better path. Sit down, talk. We had that special envoy that went to the White House, and depending on how you look at it, didn't bear as much fruit as we hoped it would. And there was also another special envoy, which had Mcebisi Jonas, a former finance minister, and he was rejected before he even got to the plane. He was told, no, we're not going to talk to you because of the remarks that you made about Donald Trump and America in recent years. So yeah, I think we should all try that route, but I think it's very, very important to keep clear heads and calm minds. This is, at the end of the day, a Trump administration. South Africa will still be there. America will still be there long after Trump's gone and forgotten. And one thing that's really interesting about this bill is, despite passing, the foreign committee stage, the bill still faces a lot of hurdles. It's not yet signed into law. It still needs to pass both the House and Senate, and be signed into law. So there's still two hurdles, but I think the foreign committee aspect of it, I think it was the most important one and the most critical one. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how likely this bill is to survive a democratic filibuster in a sense, when it comes to it being staged in tables in the Senate. Yeah, a lot of people in America calling it dead in the water, not going to carry any kind of weight. But there's some that are saying it might pass. It might pass because South Africa has been quite unequivocal when it comes to its position, and in a lot of times, nine out of 10 times, it has been bumping heads with the United States of America. And my thinking with that is, why go for South Africa alone when we are part of a BRICS bloc, and the BRICS bloc agrees on some of these positions when it comes to international relations? Why not go against Russia or China? Why go for the little guy in the corner of Africa somewhere? And it got me thinking, are we maybe underpaid playing and under not understanding just how influential South Africa can be in a greater scheme of things, for the whole United States of America to be so invested in our affairs as much as it has had this year? So you can engage with us. You can tell us what you think. United States of America and South African relations, I think, at the worst possible point. I don't remember any time in history that we found ourselves where we find ourselves today. And most importantly, how the ANC will be reacting to this as their leaders at the end of the they are going to be targeted by it. And we'll try and get you more reactions from the ANC itself, especially tomorrow morning on News and Views. But we're going to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for staying with us. This has been Salam Media Highlights. See you again soon. Shap, shap.